I was Joe Biden, I'd say it's great to be here in the state of Alaska. Joe, it's a little hot. Oh, well, good to be here in Alabama. But I know we're actually in Georgia, right? It's sort of hard to believe that we're actually going up against someone who doesn't know where he is 50% of the time, right? Sort of shocking, but thank you so much, Congressman Kingston, for the introduction. It's great to be here. I heard a special name mentioned, and I think it usually goes over pretty well. Herschel Walker. How awesome was Herschel Walker at the RNC? That was such an incredible story because Herschel's been a friend of ours, I believe it's for 37 years. Wow. I went to Disney World with Herschel Walker and his family as a baby. There's a picture of me on his lap. And you know it's the early 80s because I still had blonde hair and it was in a bowl cut. And so when Herschel got up there, we were talking about it before, we stay in touch and we're texting, he goes, man, I haven't met too many racists that would let their son go with a black man to Disney World. It just doesn't seem like that's something someone like that would do. And so, you know, his testimony, man, it was so awesome to see that at the RNC. Because I get it's not easy to come out against the narrative in favor of Trump. And you guys see that every day. I mean, you see what we're up against. We have a guy that's running, claiming he's going to fix things. Where's he been for 50 years? I don't know. You know how long Joe Biden would have lasted at the Trump Organization? He wouldn't have been able to become an intern there, but if he did, 2 to 3 weeks. He's failed his way to the top for 5 decades. He's running that he's going to fix the economy. Why didn't you do it before? Why are you going to do it now? He's fighting for middle-class workers. Really, Joe? I could have sworn you supported NAFTA. You supported TPP. You pushed for China's permanent status in the World Trade Organization for 50 years. Joe Biden has destroyed more working-class jobs and more manufacturing jobs in America than any human being alive. He's not going to change now. You can't fix that. Or in the words of Obama, there's no magic wand for that. The media can't magically make his record disappear, but they will try. It was interesting. You know, I had a lot of time, you know, during the quarantine, I had a lot of time, right? We couldn't go to work, we couldn't go to church, we couldn't go to school. And if you wanted to riot, no problem. But that's not my thing. So I was stuck at home, I was there with Kimberly, she'd make me work too hard, so I said, I gotta start researching. Fact check, true. Sir, that was an evil, evil laugh. I don't know what you're implying, but obviously a misogynist. I'm just playing by their rules. Thank you, guys. But I'm stuck there for 4 months. Again, rioting, not my thing, so I was stuck at home doing work, and I started looking into the person who would be president. I'm not an author, per se. I've written a book before, but it's not what I do. I'm not a journalist. I was able to find enough material to write a 360-page book on Joe Biden, and none of these things are being discussed in the mainstream media. Think about that. You know, because after half a century, even if there's no actual accomplishment, there's still a lot of decisions, most of them bad, that are there. I mean, think about that. Me, sitting at home alone, doing the work that any reasonable journalist that had any journalistic integrity should be doing on their own, but they're never going to question Joe Biden. They're never going to talk about the disastrous trade deals. They're never going to talk about NAFTA. They're not going to do that. They're doubling down on those bad deals. You know what they're definitely not going to talk about is Hunter Biden, As the former congressman pointed out, remember guys, we were actually business people before we got into politics, unlike Hunter. Do you think the media would be a little bit interested if, say, Donald Trump Jr. took $1.5 billion from the Chinese government? Guys, if I took $1.5 from the Chinese government, I'd be in jail right now. And just so you guys understand, they're like, well, that's an investment in a fund. In a typical fund, there's a 2% management fee, you get 20% of the profits. 2% management fee from the Chinese government on $1.5 billion is $30 million a year. That's really, really big money. You think Joe Biden's going to be tough on China? Like, you think, given some of Hunter's other problems, hey, they said that I did because I gave an energetic speech at the RNC. He's actually been caught doing it, and they don't talk about it. That's why I wrote Liberal Privilege. Right? I get to hear a lot about privilege, and God knows I am blessed. I don't hide from that. I got to experience the political system that the Democrats are pushing. Right? You know, the Bernie Sanders, that Marxist platform, the socialism, communism nonsense that they're trying to shove down our throats. I got to experience as a kid. My mother escaped from communism. My grandparents came over to this country and got to experience America, the freedoms, everything that we hold so near and dear. They were so amazed what you were able to do here in this country that they actually went to my father and said, I got to bring your son to communist Czechoslovakia. I did this every summer for 6 weeks. Communist Czechoslovakia in the early 80s. I went there, spoke the language, I had friends, I waited in those bread lines. I can assure you, they're not as glamorous as Bernie and a bunch of 14-year-olds tell you they are. If you're gonna wait in line for something, it better be an iPhone. Not bread. It's not cool, it's not sexy. There's a reason the boats only go one way, right? I always say this, I go, you know what's interesting? The Democrats can get people to get up on a stage and say some pretty crazy stuff, right? 2 weeks ago, Bill Clinton was lecturing us about decency in the Oval Office. You guys heard that one, right? I'm like, whoa! They can get some people to say some pretty crazy stuff, but they don't have anyone from Venezuela, anyone from Cuba, anyone from Eastern Bloc Europe, anyone from the former Soviet Union, anyone from China saying, bring that stuff here, it's awesome. Not one. And like I said, Bill Clinton can lecture people on decency. That's what we're up against, folks. You know, Bill Clinton, I almost feel bad for Bill Clinton. I do. No, I do. Do you think there's a human being alive that wants out of quarantine more than Bill Clinton? You know I'm right, right? Right? Not even close. Like, did any of you guys see that? Like, I call it a hostage video because it's basically what it looked like, right? You know, 2 weeks ago when it's Hillary just screaming into like a Zoom call. Like, I mean, you know it's been like that for his whole life, so he's just sitting there like, can't believe that guy wants to catch corona. So he's sitting there, praying for the sweet embrace of death, while Hillary's screaming into a Zoom call like the shrill as she is. And you know what's going through his mind, right, guys? I'm seeing Bill Clinton there. I'm envisioning him, you know? He sees himself in that blue dress from Epstein's house. Those red high heel slippers. And he's like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. He's clinking his heels together just saying there's no place like Epstein Island. That poor guy just wants out of there. I actually said, when I was watching that video, I literally sent a couple of my friends on the Secret Service. I just said, hey guys, just a heads up, one of your protectees is gonna off himself. Like, you may want to go help him out right now because hard to believe. You can almost feel sorry for Bill, but when you look at the, it's like, okay, I get it. No one wants out of this more than he does. But the fact that he can get up there at the DNC and preach decency the day pictures of him with one of Epstein's victims getting a massage get released shows you what we're up against. I agree. Yelling out loud about the child trafficking, right? About what's going on. I was one of those guys calling out Netflix for basically normalizing pedophilia. I mean, what else is it? Obama's been very silent on it, but I guess, the $100 million he got from Netflix, don't buy that. Susan Rice, she sits on the board. I'm not sure what her qualifications are, but a lot of silence on that. So I called it out. I was like, you know what? Politics isn't easy, right? Everything's like a 50-50 issue. I go, I would think that coming out against pedophilia would be a 100% issue. It turns out I was wrong. I had blue checkmark Twitter people. The guys that think they're so smart and awesome, those leftists, calling me out for it. I'm like, guess what, guys? This was always risky in politics, but I'm all in. This is a battle I'm willing to fight, and Donald Trump has done that. You saw he permanently funded these organizations to prevent human trafficking. Stop the child trafficking. How come no one else has even talked about this before? I mean, again, I understand that there's a lot of Democrats that seem to be fighting for it. I don't know if that's Trump derangement syndrome or just derangement, probably both. But how come he's the first guy to be talking about these things and actually funding it? People know the problem exists. Is it because Hollywood wants to come? I honestly can't tell at this point because it seems they're beholden to something that's just wrong at this point. But again, you won't hear about that from the media. That's why it's so important for me to be at places like this. People are like, Don, you're on the ground all the time. I'm like, I have to be. I don't have $1 billion in free publicity from the media. Fake attacks, running with lies from anonymous sources for the crime of what? Wanting to get out of endless wars that our own generals can't articulate why we're still there? You know why they're there, right? We all know why we're still in Afghanistan, right? Because every one of those guys wants a board seat at Raytheon in a couple of years. It's nothing to do with any reason. They can't articulate it. I've been in the room when my father asked them to explain it. They don't know. Well, we've been there for a while. Might as well just keep it going. I want that board seat. It's a lot of money. And that's the craziness that we're up against. I mean, think about it. We got 2 peace deals done in the Middle East in the last 2 weeks. And you know how much coverage we got of it? Almost nothing. Almost nothing. You know what they spent time fact-checking the week that was announced? My sister, Ivanka. You guys know Ivanka, right, lady? Ivanka gave a speech introducing my father at the RNC. And she told a little story about her son. He's 3 years old. He built his grandfather a Lego White House. You guys know what I'm talking about. Media's fact-checking it. Did he do it by himself? I don't know. He's 3. He probably had some assistance. Does that matter? Like, what? I mean, they spend more time trying to cancel a 3-year-old than they did talking about the holy grail of geopolitical politics, peace in the Middle East. Right? They spent more time running cover for people sexually exploiting young children on TV than they do about other wins. They spend more time pretending that Joe Biden's competent than they do talking about his 50 years of failure. That's why we need you. Right? I get to hear about it every day. I see the press. Anything Donald Trump does is bad. Joe Biden hides in the basement. When he comes out once every other couple of days because he needs that much time to recuperate from the grueling questions that he's answering by teleprompter. You know what he reads? And that's because America, next question. I'm like, Joe, you're not supposed to read that. I don't know, guys. Like, listen, I'm new to this. I was a business guy. You would think that after half a century, you'd probably know what to do with a teleprompter. More importantly, you would think that after half a century, maybe you wouldn't need a teleprompter. I'm doing this, I don't have a teleprompter. It's not that hard, but it is for Joe. But he's the camouflage. He's camouflage for the radical left. They can come to middle America, they can go to the Rust Belt, they can come to Georgia and be like, no, he's a moderate. It's blue-collar Joe from Scranton. It's none of those things. You're not a moderate with Kamala Harris as your VP. You're not a moderate taking $100 million from Mike Bloomberg and then coming out against AR-15s. You're not a moderate on the Second Amendment. If you have Beto O'Rourke, Beto, hell yeah, I'll take your AR-15 O'Rourke as your guns are. You're not a moderate with Bernie Sanders' platform, which he's adopted. But the media will run into every little TV in the country and say, no, he's a moderate Joe, because they know exactly what they're getting. They didn't want Joe Biden. They wanted Kamala to begin with, and they'll get it. But they're going to use him to get her in. No one believes that Joe Biden's going to be in charge of these things. In all fairness, come on, the guy can't remember where he is 50% of the time. He confuses his wife from his sister. If I did that with Ivanka and Kimberly, I'd be... You saw Kimberly, she's got no shortage of energy, and that spice would come out and man would be ugly. I'd last 2 to 3 seconds. He forgets the office he's running for. Remember yourself. For your own children, you have to pay for that and theirs. Think of what that would do to the middle class. Think of what that would do to like the lowest income earners, who for the first time in modern history under Donald Trump have actually seen real wage growth. You think that's going to help them or hurt them? And Joe Biden, he can go to places and he can just speak out of both sides of his mouth, no problem. He's not going to get called on it. He did it last week in Pennsylvania. The one time he shows up out of the basement for 10 days, goes to Pennsylvania. I'm not against fracking. Really, it's like point number 1 on your platform, Joe. I know you don't know what your platform is, but like, man, like you can't remember point number 1? Notice that? Not one fact check. Not one media correction saying, no, that's incorrect. Actually, you and Kamala are against it. You're going to get rid of all fossil fuel burning, and by 2030, you're going to do X, Y, Z to destroy those jobs. But because the media knows that would hurt him in Pennsylvania, they pretend as though it never even happened. They pretend his platform is something other so he can help them there. If he's in a more liberal area that's against it, they'd say he's totally against it. Think about that. He walks into these fake press conferences where he's only taking questions from specific people. The questions are written and they're preloaded. The answers are in a teleprompter. No one in the media questions it. No one in the media asks, hey, why weren't you in the debate with Joe Rogan for 4 hours one-on-one? Because they know. They don't want that debate. With some mainstream media hack that hates Donald Trump and can lead him into the right answers. If Joe Biden gets to the debate stage and doesn't drop dead, they'll say he won, whether he does good or not. But after he'll do fine. He's been doing it for half a century. He's done 10,000 more debates than Donald Trump, so he'll do fine. Even when he loses badly, they'll say he won. It almost doesn't matter. Some 25-year-old, like the person who handles his Twitter, because it's not Joe, right? Some kid will write, a witty line. He'll write it down in a notes, he'll remember it, he'll deliver it, even if it makes sense to deliver it or not at the time. And they'll say, wow, look at that report. That'll be the only thing they play from the entire domain. That's why we need you guys in there. That's why we need you fighting. If Joe Biden could have fixed anything in this country, why did he do it by now? You know, one of the big ones, honestly, one of the big ones, you know, Joe Biden saying he's going to fix racial inequality in this country. Go, wow. Why didn't you do that when you were, I don't know, the vice president to the first African-American president? Hey, no, seriously, if you cared about the issue, and you weren't just pandering, and you didn't just want another point to campaign on, why didn't you do it? Why did Donald Trump have to take on criminal justice reform, pass the First Step Act, push for opportunity zones? Because if you're a DC politician, there's no incentive to solve problems, because then you can't campaign on them. You fix something, you can't go back and make someone feel like a victim later on. It's why the Democrats don't want to open, you know, you saw the economic numbers last week, right? Wow, you see the media, they're miserable. Huh? Man, these numbers are pretty good. They're distraught that the economy is not collapsing. They're distraught. Numbers are better than expected. That sucks. I really wanted to drive more small business out of business. That's what the media is hoping for. I mean, it's mind-boggling. What they don't tell you is, the numbers are pretty darn good. And California, New York, Michigan, parts of Pennsylvania, they're not even in the inflation yet. They're still basically on lockdown. So imagine good numbers, great numbers, unemployment on par with the Obama-Biden average of their 8 years, in the midst of a pandemic missing 30% of the economy. Doesn't that sort of tell you all you need to know? It seems sort of like a no-brainer, but you know, yeah. Joe Biden could fix anything. I would imagine he would have given it a shot by now. You know, again, we know people take a little while to warm up. Half a century. Think of it this way, guys, for perspective, because I feel much older than I used to. I used to be the youngest guy in the room. That is no longer the case. I was -8 when Joe Biden took elected office in D.C. He campaigned. Some of his campaigns based around, well, America, big government has failed you. Like, no kids, no shit, Joe. Like, sorry, I'm actually with you on this one, but if I were you, I may not run with this. You know, it's sort of Bill lecturing on morality, like, this is not your wheelhouse. After 50 years, maybe you're part of the problem. So that's why we need you guys. We need you. You sign up you go to armyfortrump.com. Sign up your friends, get your friends registered. We don't have the benefit of the media doing our work for us. We have to be on the ground. We have to be with the people. That's where we want to be anyway. Okay? Because my father didn't do this work. He didn't need the job. Certainly didn't need the headache. Could have done pretty good on his own, just hanging out. He does. You know what? He was watching from the sidelines for decades as incompetent politicians who've never signed the front of a paycheck, who've never done anything in the real world, make trillion-dollar decisions that you, your children, your grandchildren will be beholden to forever. Okay? While they've mortgaged off our lives, while guys like Joe Biden have sent your American dream to China. I mean, Joe Biden's son is still on the board of a company shipping jobs from Michigan to China today. But he's going to do it differently now. You're not changing that. So we need you guys. Go to armyfortrump.com, sign up, volunteer, knock on doors, make the phone calls, get your friends to do the same. This is an organic movement. Now, the last thing my father said to me on June 16, 2015, is we were going down in the elevator as a family. You remember that one? Were you there? I don't remember that. But, that was before the escalator ride, right? He just looks at me, and he says, and now we find out who our real friends are. It was pretty amazing. It struck me. I was like, man, that's, I'm used to things a little bit more blunt and a little less cerebral for him. But it showed a couple of things. A, it showed that he's a big boy. He understands how the real world works, right? He's done real things. He's created real businesses. He gets it. He knows what people will do. He knows they would turn on him in a second. They would pretend 20 years of friendship no longer mattered, and they'd take the other side because they want to be woke. Yeah, that's all it is, right? But more importantly, he knew that, but he did it anyway. Right? And now we have a major decision. We can vote in November for freedom or for communism. That's the platform today. What would happen to you? They'd beat you over the head with a brick. I'm serious. I'd be wearing a Joe Biden shirt and you'd be fine with me here. Try wearing a MAGA hat in Portland, in Chicago, in New York. That's what we're up against. It's the first time in American history. You get in more trouble for opening up your business to feed your family than you do for burning down someone else's. We got law and order versus anarchy. The Democrats they're a little bit against it. It was sort of wishy-washy. They wait 4 months to actually come out against it until they realized it was hurting them in the polls. But, yeah, not one person at the DNC, not one, condemned looting, arson, violence. In some of these states, the prosecutors are looking, well, could there be a social need for the person that had stolen a 62-inch flat screen? I'm like, I don't think so. They'll do anything to justify the excuse. So we have a fight ahead of us. We know that. You got Hollywood, you got social media, you got mainstream media, you have big tech, and they're all putting their weight on the scale. Influence, to minimize our message from getting out there, to minimize you guys from having a voice. But you do. But we need you guys to work it differently, because their voice, it's a lot easier to get their voice out there. So I need you guys to sign up for those things like Army for Trump. Get your friends involved. Get out there. Fight every day through Election Day. Make sure we win this resoundingly so they can't play the games that you see them setting up, right? Well, with mail-in balloting, we don't want signatures to have to match. They go, if you're not cheating, why could you possibly not want a signature to match if you're saying you want one vote for one person? Because they're not. Okay? They're saying the quiet parts out loud these days, folks. You heard Bernie. Ideas that were radical just a few months ago are now mainstream Democrat platforms. He's right. Believe them when they tell you what they are. Okay? So wake up. Get in the fight. Get your friends in the fight. And I can assure you, with 4 more years, we're going to make America great again. Again!